Hi, my name's Kathy Millett, and this week we're looking at how to paint cobbles, cobblestone streets. In the real world, well, I went on a tour to Lisbon for the day, so I've loads and loads of cobble streets from Lisbon, and it was really fun. Now, there's not a lot of mortar or cement in some of these photos, so I've tended to go for that older, more cemented look rather than the newer look, which tends not to have much in between. But, you know, it's up to you. I really like some of these pictures, and the sort of, when I look at the colours, there's an element of blue to some of the cobbles, and that's what I've tried to pick up. They are dark grey, but there's just something that's a bit of a bluey tinge too. So this is the Kino diorama that Doug Foscale sent me. Lovely diorama, and I'm on to doing this little bit of street here. And for this, I want to paint a typical dark grey, maybe a slight blue tinge, but not hugely blue tinge. Cobblestone street, and then I'm going to fill the grout areas in, and we're also going to add in the guttering here and the drain hole as well. So I started off by spraying some Halfords grey car primer. I love Halfords grey car primer. I use it to prime everything. It's a great colour, and actually if it shows through, it's not a problem on this because it's not far off the grey that we actually want. Then I had a little play with a couple of Vallejos, and in the end I chose a mix of intermediate blue and French Mirage blue, and they're 70.903 and 70.900. I just painted a quick coat over all of the cobbles. So there we go, first coat on. Now you can wait for this to dry. I'm impatient. I'm going to go and get the hairdryer out. Best not to use hairdryers on plastic models too much. I have melted models, just to put that out there. But on a plaster model like this, no problem at all. So whilst that's drying the last little bit, I'm just going to paint this section black. I'm actually going to use black grey, which is 70862. It's my favourite colour in the Vallejo range, sad to say, because it's what I use for black. I never use just plain black, because plain black's just a bit too black. So this area is just to make sure that when you look down the drain, you don't see anything too pale, because normally you just see dark shadow. Next up, we just need to add a little bit more depth to the paint. So what we want to do is use something that's a slightly darker tone. So I'm going to use a little bit of the black grey, intermediate blue, just so it's in the same sort of range of colours. So we can put that in there. I added water until it was a bit thinner. I didn't want it to cover too much, and then just dabbed it on with a sponge so it didn't get a really even painted on look. We don't want every single cobble covered. We do want a little bit of variety, and a sponge just does that for us. Now what we need to do is add a wash, something to bring a bit of life to it. It's all very flat looking, really. So years ago, I bought a job lot of MIG washes. They're now out of production, so whenever I use them on videos, people always go, oh, what can I use instead, because I can't get MIG? Really good question. The answer is AK Interactive and Ammo by MIG all do washes. They might call them panel lines, whatever they call them. You want the dark, brownish colour. Doesn't really matter what it's meant for, as long as it's just an enamel wash. And if you want to make your own, a lovely darkish, this is a brown, I like it, dark colour and just white spirit will create the same effect and actually be a bit cheaper. These are just very easy to use. And all you have to do is dab it on. Effectively, it just sits in the little divots and dimples that are sort of modelled into the cobbles and creates just that extra dimension that you can't get through paint alone. Now whilst that's just finally setting up, I'm going to paint my guttering. So I've got this laser cut gutter that just fits in here, and to do that all I need to do is I'm going to start with a red brown. This is a Tamiya red brown. It's a nice sort of colour to start with on a rusty brown grate. If we think about grates, they're almost always rusty. Ooh, there we go, I missed it open. So to finish off this, the paint dried, a bit shiny in the middle there. And what I need to do is just give it a little bit of metallic sheen. Not a lot, just a bit, to make it look like it's metal rather than just rusted wood. You know, anything. So a small amount of, this is AK Interactive Dark Steel, K086 Pigment and just literally just rub it on, and it just catches the edges with a bit of metallicness that when you catch it from an angle just makes it look a little bit more like it's a proper drainage thing rather than anything else. There we go. If I tilt it you might be able to see the metallicness on it. So what I'm going to do now is do the cement, mortar, whatever it is you put in between cobbles. And for that I'm going to put a newspaper underneath. It's going to get a bit messy I expect. I'm going to use tile grout. Now I often get asked, do I use sanded or unsanded tile grout? And I've got to say, the packets in the UK don't really say. So I'm going to guess that's an American thing, because I think it's Americans that generally ask me that question. I use wall or floor tile grout. I'm not really that fussed. So whatever it is you can get hold of, really. But what you want for this one is a beige or a light colour. I mean, a white would do, and then you can colour it later. So just tile grout. There we go, get it in the middle. Put that on there, move that way around. And I'm just going to sprinkle the tile grout on. I'm not really that fussed about it being nice and even or anything. I'm just going to put it on, and then what I'm going to do is just rub it into the gaps. The easiest implement to use to spread the grout is definitely your finger. Brushes etc. seem to pull it out more. So put plenty on, make sure there's no gaps and rub it really hard. Then tip it off and make sure you keep rubbing it until it's all well compacted in. Now at this point it does look a bit too grouty. So if you just rub it gently with a finger you can see that it comes off, but doing it with a finger takes quite a long time. I find a sponge, a nice flat makeup sponge, is actually the best thing to use. You want something that's not going to drag the grout out of the gaps. So all you need to do is go over, rinse your sponge fairly regularly in the water so it doesn't get too clogged up, and take the excess grout off till you see the nice dark blue tiles and grout sitting around them. Don't forget to clean out your gutter area. That needs no grout whatsoever around it because it needs to look black when we're done. Right, we just need to make sure that the rest of this grout now sticks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dribble on some isopropyl alcohol and water mix. Now this mix is excellent for running into things. And when I say running into things, it gets through the surface tension in a way water doesn't. It's like adding a drop of fairy liquid to your washing up. But what you want on this is something that will run and not create bubbles. And I find you can use fairy liquid, but you get a bubbly surface, which isn't great. So this is isopropyl alcohol, IPA, about a third of the 99%. So you might want to go half if you're using rubbing alcohol at 75%. And then filled up with just normal water. And you can just dribble it on. Now the isopropyl alcohol will make your glue spread, but your glue itself is quite a simple mix. It just has to be white glue and water. I use about a third white glue. This is a decorator's white glue and water. I'm not fussed if it dries shiny because actually I want quite a shiny look on the cobbles, so it actually suits me in this little instance. And I put this on and I had a little problem with it not quite being mixed well because it was a new bottle, and don't worry about it in this instance. You can just give it a little bit of a rub when it's on the surface and it will all soon disappear in. And what I did do actually was rub the surface with the glue on there just to make sure that I got any remaining grout off. I'm going to dry it, as I often do, on just a piece of paint pot, and then if any glue runs over the edge it doesn't stick it to the underneath. So a couple of these Tamiya ones are great, and actually two is a little bit more solid than one. So I'm just going to put it on 2 Tamiya paint pots and leave it there. And it will drip if necessary. I don't think it will. It's quite a thick glue, this. So the cobbles will set up overnight. I'm really pleased how they've come out. There's a bit of variety in them. You know, there could have perhaps been a little bit more coming out of the wash, but I like it. I didn't want it to be overpoweringly speckled because, you know, you want it to look homogeneous to some extent. But there we go. The grouts work well. Comes out the right scale for this. And I am going to put debris in. I glued this in place just with some white glue. I'm going to put debris in on a future video, so I won't do any more now. Normally I'd add a few leaves or things into the gutters just to give a little bit of variety. But there we go. Cobblestone Street.